Alright, looks like Zack Snyder is bringing us the Snyderverse, but not the one we expected. Let's talk about it. What is up, Netflix fans? Welcome back to my channel. Army of Thieves is the brand new entry into the Army of the Dead franchise, and we're going to talk about if this movie was worth making in the first place. Let's do it. And this is a prequel set before the events of Army of the Dead, which focuses on German safecracker Ludwig Dieter leading a group of aspiring thieves on a top-secret heist during the early stages of the zombie apocalypse. And not only does Matthias Schweighöfer star as Dieter, he also directs this movie. You also have Jonathan Cohen, Stuart Martin, Ruby O'Fee, Nathalie Emmanuel as a solid cast of quirky, wacky, sometimes a bit brutal characters that surround our main player in Dieter, and they create this Army of Thieves. It's in the name. And we know Dieter from Army of the Dead, of course, carrying over, getting his backstory. And while I was watching Army of the Dead, even though I was thoroughly entertained by his character, he's not one I was saying, oh yeah, well, if that guy had a prequel, the world would be a better place. No, I was kind of watching him saying, yeah, he's entertaining. And then I heard that he was directing a movie, and I'm sitting here thinking, how long were they planning for this film? Did they put enough effort into it? And my expectation level, even though I actually enjoyed Army of the Dead, I had a good time with it. I know I may be in the minority there, possibly, but don't care. I went into this film with some concern, and as soon as the credits hit, I said to myself, that was a lot more fun than I expected. This movie had no right, actually it did, but it had no right being as fun as you had hoped it would be. But yes, if it was only that, then I would have said, okay, where's the heart? Where's the emotion? We need something to resonate not only with this character, but our cast, the supporting crew, this Army of Thieves. And we get that. Maybe not every character has the emotional resonance that you would hope for, but for the most part, especially the relationship at the center here, being recruited by the character of Gwendolyn, there's an automatic bond that's formed between the two at the beginning, and that kind of carries on throughout the film. And as they're kind of preparing themselves for this big heist at the end, and we'll get into all of the heist isms here in a little bit because those are super entertaining. Those two spark a nice relationship, and as a whole, as each character comes in, we learn more about them. You have kind of the action hero, the one that comes in, doesn't really care, but she has a solid set of skills, the guy that just kind of floats in the background. So each team member, even though they bring their quirkiness to the table, they each bring something important to the table. So when we go to pull off our first mission here, kind of a training mission of sorts, that's when we really get to see each player in action. And I found that to be thoroughly entertaining. Yes, there are cliches. Yes, there are conventions. There were a couple of things at the beginning. Within the first 20 minutes, you get this very distinct style. Not Zack Snyder's style, albeit, it's as similar as you would hope it would be, fitting in the same universe, but one that Matthias brings that I really wasn't expecting. And I'm going to make this comparison. It feels like, not the Suicide Squad, it feels like the way Suicide Squad handled its character introductions without the ridiculous and off-putting soundtrack playing beneath it, but it works far better in this story than that movie because when we meet each character, we get a bit of a backstory, but it never feels shoehorned or unnecessary. Every bit of depth and really the dialogue, like I said, some cliche lines, absolutely, but the dialogue always focuses on said character, and it gives us more for us to root for. Again, it's, a group of people that are doing something bad. So kind of like the Suicide Squad, once again, it's hard to, at times, root for what they're doing, but they're doing it for the greater good. And they're so likable. Not the entire crew, but the ones that we really focus on. Really likable characters, especially the two at the center, which, again, form a really nice relationship that showcases so much heart, and I believe that's something that's needed within a movie like this. Now, as a whole, the story, what they're trying to do, it is and was a bit too familiar for me. Again, we see heist movies like this all the time, and while the style of the film interested me absolutely, kind of the formula of where the story goes didn't quite get me fully engaged. And then there is a group of people, one person in particular, kind of after our group of thieves, and I get it. You have to have a character like this in that situation to give our group something to run from, essentially. But there's a final confrontation, and even though I do love the decisions made in that moment, and there was a lot of heart within that moment, I'm looking at the character who's after our army, and I'm thinking, I just wish there was more there for me to almost get behind that story, because that's technically one of the good guys, as much as I got behind our group here. But understandably so, the movie is trying its best to get us to look at this group as the heroes, and it does a good job. In terms of the actual skill set of our main character, what he has to do here, cracking these safes and having the wit and the intellectual ability to do that, those were by far the most entertaining parts of the movie, because even though when other moments were trying to drag it down, and honestly, I like the safe cracking even more than the heist stuff, especially a giant event at the beginning where he's kind of testing his skills. That was really fun. That's something that we don't often get in a movie like this, so that added an extra element and layer that kind of made up for the lackluster story beats. So I really enjoyed that aspect, and really our main character who, in Army of the Dead was funny, but in this film, a lot more depth, a lot more emotion, so I don't know how we would see more because this was a prequel, but I would love to see more of a character, at least a character like this in the future. My other nitpick is, yes, it does take place in this universe, so obviously you're going to have zombie things happening in the background, but I felt like we went back to that far too often to where it almost took me out of this story. And even then, this character's having dreams about zombies, and I'm thinking to myself, it's a bit on the nose. I almost wish it felt more separated, but, I understand it's in the universe. So before I give you guys my score, I want to say thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this Netflix review and you want to see more, drop your thumbs up. The movie definitely took its time to win me over, and I had to look past just a bit of the dialogue, but once it did, I was on board. It ended up being a lot more entertaining than anticipated. It surrounds its fun cast with a distinct style that shines through. I wasn't entirely engaged with the way the story played out, and some of the dialogue is awkward, but all in all, I believe this is a fun film. A nice entry in this franchise. A 64% from me. So a recommendation at the end of the day. And a prequel that, give me more Army of the Dead sequels, prequels. I know Zack Snyder just announced, I believe it's called Planet of the Dead. Oh boy, that means things are going down. I'll see you guys soon.